What's going on, parents? Happy Teenager Tuesday. We are
Yes.
back with another edition. We got
We are.
a 2-week series.
Yes.
That you are going to be the expert, the practitioner. And
I'm gonna try.
This is what we're talking about,
Yeah.
which I'm very excited about. We get, August is like right around the corner, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Insane.
And you
Yeah. It feels like summer just started, and here we are at the end of it.
Yeah, it
It's
just-
what it feels like.
It just happens so quick.
It's
It
so
does.
fast, yeah.
And what we get very commonly, not uncommon, not the majority of parents and families, but
Yeah.
we'll have parents who are very involved in church, and then, or they volunteer, they're in groups or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they have a really hard time sometimes with their students not wanting to go to church,
Yeah.
saying they don't believe it, they don't want to whatever.
Yeah.
And then the question that we get a lot is, do I force them?
Yeah.
When is it too much? When is
Yeah.
it over the top? When do I
Absolutely.
just need to be okay? Like, what do I do? What do I
Yeah.
do with that?
Well, and we get this question a lot, and we have for years.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because here I am, I feel like on the other side of that question. Because for those of you who know my story, I got my kids a little bit later in life, adopted. And so now I have 2 kids going into 10th grade and one going into 8th grade. So I'm all of a sudden a parent of teenagers in the thick of it,
Yeah.
like with parents who've been doing it for years. And so just trying to figure it out for myself. And this is something that we've dealt with in my household. And so I have a couple tips, I
Yeah.
guess, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
I guess my first one that I would just say is, how we should respond to anything that our kids maybe tell us is that we don't panic. That we don't panic when our student comes to us and says, I don't want to go to church. And we're kind of like, what do we do? I think
Yeah.
we need to become, as parents, expert question askers.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I feel like there's so many times that our students want to do something or don't want to do something, and maybe we don't understand the why behind it. And this
Yeah.
has happened with me and my teenagers again and again, and I'm still learning this, is like trying to figure out, like, well, give me some, like, why would you, have you had a bad experience? Why don't you want to go to church? Is there something about it you don't like?
Yeah.
Do you not feel connected? I think that there's a bunch of different ways that you can, or a bunch of different questions you can ask to kind of investigate and figure out the why behind that. And maybe, they don't feel connected. Maybe they don't think any of their friends go to church, or
Yeah.
maybe they show up and they're not super connected to their small group leader.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a bunch of different reasons, but finding out the why so that you can then maybe go to the the youth pastor at your campus or the youth staff at your campus and say, hey, this is how my kid is feeling. What can you help me with this?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, we want to help with that because
Absolutely.
we want your kids to be in church just as much, probably
Yeah.
not just as much as you do, but probably really
Pretty
close.
Well,
Yeah.
and the context of that is supreme.
Yeah.
Because then when you know where someone's coming from,
Absolutely.
you're able to better lead them to a point.
Yeah.
It's like when you
Yeah.
when you run a race, you have to start from somewhere to be able to finish.
To know where you're finished. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the same thing with our kids. And
Yeah.
because when they're teenagers, they're in our home for such a short amount of time anyways, and then teenage years seem to like fly by.
Yeah, okay.
But also just keeping, knowing the why is helping us keep what's important in front of them.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
as Christ followers, hopefully our one of our number one goals is leading them to who Jesus is and to him. And church is such a good place for them to figure out more of what they believe,
yeah.
as well as your home
Sure.
and our home,
Yeah.
but
So-
it can be so instrumental.
Okay, so
yeah,
don't panic.
don't panic.
Ask those questions, and then
Yeah.
the parents they're wondering, okay, so now I force.
Well, okay, so I think maybe it's changing the phrasing just a little bit from, all right, I'm forcing my kid to go, to like, we're going to lead through whatever my student is going through.
Okay.
And so it's more about like leading them to why this is beneficial to their life. For instance, I have one of my kids, we were walking one time and she was like, I don't believe what you and dad believe. And so I don't like going to church. I don't want to go to church. And,
Oh, man.
And yeah.
Did you panic?
As me, as student pastor, I was like, what? There was a little bit of panic, but
Yeah.
I held it in.
Yeah.
And I said, I totally understand. I understand that. I get that you don't necessarily believe what Dad and I have believed, and so much of it may be because of the life that we've lived and seeing God show up for us again and again. And here's some ways He showed up for us, and one day we hope that God can show up for you in ways that He showed up for us. But just as a family, like this is something that we do as a family, and because we believe this, this is what our family does, and
Yeah.
we're leading our family to this, and we're helping them. And you don't have to necessarily. We're not trying to force you to believe what we believe, but we're going going together, and hopefully if you're there
Yeah.
and you have the right attitude, you're going to make some good connections. You're going to make some good friends. Like, you'll be connected to other adults in your life who, like, if you're going through something hard, can help you walk through something. And so I think really just tweaking that word from forcing to leading,
Yeah.
I think it helps so much.
But I like that too for parents to even
Yeah.
just the way they're approaching it too, because then
Yeah.
it's more of like the leading sense, seeing there's value there, just like parents force or lead
Yeah.
their student to go to school.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. And I say this to parents a lot is, we don't really give our kids an option of whether they go to school or not. We know
Yeah.
that it's beneficial for their life. We know
Yeah.
they're learning something. We know ultimately it's going to help them. And if we know that education is so important for them, and as Christ followers, we believe that their spiritual life, our students' spiritual life, our spiritual life is number one.
Yeah.
And so we're leading them to help them get to that conclusion on their own
Yeah.
without us forcing
Yeah.
them. But also, if we don't put that in front of them, maybe they won't ever get to that point.
Oh yeah.
And there could be other ways. I mean, God
Sure.
can use us as parents and
yeah.
and God doesn't even have to use us. God can show up for our student, however, but this is such a good way
Yeah.
for students to begin to see God moving in their lives and in their peers' lives.
So what if I'm guessing that wasn't like a 1 week battle.
No.
I'm guessing it wasn't like a quick thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say for someone that's like, okay, well, how long
Yeah.
do I do this? I don't know. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I think, as parents, we often revisit so many things. Like, if our kid, they don't like broccoli when they're 2 years old, like we have them try broccoli again when they're 5, and then when they're 7, and then when
Yeah.
they're 10. And then maybe one day it's like, oh, I love broccoli. I mean, and so it's kind of like one of those things where we are revisiting the decision that we've together come on. So like
Yeah.
maybe it's like, okay, we're going on the weekends together, and maybe you're not going on Wednesday night, but we're going on the weekends. And then in 6 months, we're going to revisit, and we're going to have you try Wednesday night again. And I'm going to make sure that the student pastor knows, their small group leader is going to be ready for you. And so I think it's just so important not to make like a hard and fast decision about, okay, if you don't want to go on Wednesday nights because you had a bad experience or whatever it might be, like, it's really important for us not to like put our foot down and say, okay, this is the ultimate
This
decision.
is it forever.
Right. But
Yeah.
for us to say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about this
Yeah.
or think about this, or this is where we
Sure.
are for the next 6 months. And then we're going to revisit it
Yeah.
and
Which is
just
great.
see what
yeah.
happens.
Well,
yeah.
and we'll even more practical tips with like that and the whole negotiation stuff and that kind of stuff next week. I was talking with a dad actually earlier today.
Okay.
Who his son has tried a couple times to get connected.
Yeah.
Didn't work either time.
Yeah.
And then got him to summer camp, even though it was kind of like a pushing him out
Yeah.
the door thing.
You're going,
And
yeah.
now has been hanging out with those students.
I love
I
that.
like made friends,
Yeah.
made friends from other campuses.
So good.
And he was just like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like this is like, I think this time it stuck.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, it can
Well,
take a little bit.
and you never know like when that moment's going to be for your student.
yeah.
And so I will tell you that, for my daughter, it was very hard. She had friends that came to Hope students, that she loved it. And I know one of the things that happened for me this year at summer camp is I saw my daughter actually enjoying being at summer camp. I've not seen it before. She's going into 10th grade. This is the third year that she's gone, or the fourth year that she's gone. And every time it's kind of like she's sat in the back with her arms crossed, not participated in things. But I've honestly, my husband and I were like, this is fun. Like, you have fun. There's a bunch of fun things. So you're going to go and it's going to be fun. You're going to love it. Well, this year I got to witness her, like, literally it was a change from the last time she went, like a
Yeah.
switch. And she's been talking about how fun it was. And I think that that's just another point is like, we never, like, ever give up on the fact that God can use you to be an instrument in your students' lives, and you talking and praying and helping them work through the season of feeling like they're being forced or I don't want to do something. Like, God can use you.
Yeah.
And, I just think that that's
never
such
give up.
never give
Yeah,
up.
I love that.
Yeah, on
'Cause
what
God's
God wants
never
to
given
do.
up on us, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
we've gone through seasons too. Like we all have, all of us as
Yeah.
Christ followers have. So
We have.
yeah.
And it's good. So thank you.
Yeah.
And next week, we'll have even more practical stuff.
Yes, some good
A lot
tips.
of practical tips.
Yeah.
So signing off this week, remember, you can do this. You are not alone.
Yeah.
God is with you, and so are we.
Yes.
Have a great week.
Bye.